In my opinion, the biggest challenge of my life at the age of 78 would be recovering from a fall. Little did I know that a fractured hip was not the end of a chapter, but the beginning of a war. A silent war, fought behind fake smiles and cups of tea, where my son-in-law, the man I welcomed into my family, was using a forged power of attorney and heart medication to get me out of the way. He and my own daughter, the one I gave birth to, wanted not only my house, but my entire inheritance. They thought I was a frail, defenseless old woman. They were wrong. I looked at my cell phone screen and read the words I never thought I would see. Mum, we want a quiet Christmas this year. Don't come. My name is Eleanor. For nearly 5 decades, I was a veterinarian. I saved the lives of countless animals and built a sturdy, decent life alongside my beloved husband, Robert, who passed away 12 years ago. Our house, built brick by brick, is my sanctuary, my refuge, my safe harbour. After the fall that happened during a thunderstorm, I went to my daughter, Rebecca's, house to recover, and that's where the nightmare began. I always imagined my old age as a golden autumn, full of tranquility and small joys. The pages of books would turn slowly as the afternoon sun streamed through my living room window. The smell of lemon balm tea would spread through the house, and perhaps an old patient or two would knock on the door to show me how healthy their dog was after so many years. A dignified, independent old age in my own home, the one Robert and I built brick by brick, sacrifice after sacrifice. But life has a particular way of mocking our best-laid plans. Now, at 78, with a fractured hip that still aches when the weather changes, I'm sitting on the front porch of my daughter, Rebecca's house. A temporary stay, as everyone insists on calling it. It's been 5 months since the accident. Mum, do you need another pillow? Rebecca asks, rushing past the porch with her phone in one hand and a folder of documents in the other. No, I'm fine, I automatically reply, without taking my eyes off the street. There's a couple walking their dog, a young Dalmatian, pulling too hard on the leash. I can see it has hip dysplasia by the way it distributes its weight on its hind legs. An old vet's habit. The night of the accident remains vivid in my memory. The storm had started suddenly, one of those that makes the sky explode in blue lightning. I was alone, as I had been for the last 12 years since Robert left. The basement began to flood, something that had never happened before, and I went down to save the boxes with the old photos, the letters Robert and I exchanged while dating, Rebecca's first baby clothes. Mom! Rebecca had called me in the middle of the storm. Please don't go down to the basement. We're on our way. But I was already on the stairs when she called. A step gave way under my weight, soaked by the rising water. It was as if time slowed down. I saw the ceiling spin, felt the impact, and then nothing. I woke up in the hospital with Rebecca at my side, deep circles under her always made-up eyes. The house was the first thing I asked. It's partially destroyed, she answered, squeezing my hand tightly. The basement flooded completely and compromised the structure. But don't think about that now. 3 days later, I was discharged and came to Rebecca's house. What should have been an arrangement for a few weeks stretched on as the insurance company invented excuses not to pay the necessary amount for repairs. Previous structural issues, they claimed, as if a 60-year-old house wouldn't have previous structural issues. Ms. Eleanor, time for lunch, says Clara, the housekeeper, interrupting my thoughts. Clara is from El Salvador, has small, efficient hands, and is probably the only person in this house I feel comfortable with. Thank you, dear. I'm coming. I get up carefully, using the cane that has become my inseparable companion. Every step is calculated, measured. The autonomy I once had, rushing to attend veterinary emergencies in the middle of the night, driving across New York for house calls, now seems like a distant dream. The dining table at Rebecca's house is enormous, dark and shiny wood, the kind you see in decorating magazines. When I sit down, I feel diminished by its size. Rebecca is on the phone, as usual, talking about some important client at her advertising agency. No, no, we need the approval today. No exceptions. Her voice is firm but polite. She nods at me while continuing the conversation. Andrew, my son-in-law, enters the room minutes later. He is tall, with grey at his temples that gives him an air of distinction. He smiles at me as he sits down. How is my favourite mother-in-law today? I'm your only mother-in-law, Andrew, I reply with a strained smile. And for that very reason, the favourite one. He laughs at his own joke. Any news from the insurance company? That question has become all too frequent. Nothing new. They're still reviewing the case. You know, Eleanor. He leans across the table, lowering his voice as if sharing a secret. I have a friend in the real estate business who could appraise your house. Even with the damage, the land is worth a lot. You could sell, solve this headache, and have some good money to enjoy. Before I could answer, Matthew, my 15-year-old grandson, rushes into the room. Grandma! He hugs me, something he's been doing more often since the accident, as if he's afraid I might disappear. I brought you something. He places a small cactus in a colourful pot in my hands. For your room. It's hard to kill, just like you. He winks, and I can't help a genuine laugh, the first of the day. Matthew, your grandmother is not a cactus, Rebecca scolds him, finally hanging up the phone. No, but she's just as tough as one. He sits next to me. Grandma, did you know that cacti can live for more than 200 years? During lunch, I observe the family dynamic that was never really mine. Rebecca and Andrew discuss work, Matthew's school, Rebecca's 50th birthday party that is approaching. They ask occasional questions about my comfort, if I need anything, if the pain is controlled. Host questions, not family questions. In the afternoon, when Rebecca and Andrew leave for work and Matthew goes to school, the house falls silent. That's when I feel the loneliest and, paradoxically, the most at ease. I pick up one of the books I brought with me. Few of my personal belongings escaped the flood, and I settle into the armchair in the guest room. The phone rings. It's Ethan, my former colleague from the veterinary clinic. Eleanor, how's the rebel? I smile at the sound of his voice. We worked together for more than 30 years. Surviving, Ethan? And you? I need your opinion. I have a complicated case here. A German shepherd with strange neurological symptoms. For nearly an hour, we immerse ourselves in a technical discussion about differential diagnoses and possible treatments. When we hang up, my heart feels lighter. For a few moments, I was Dr. Eleanor again, respected, needed, useful. At night, when everyone returns home, I feel the weight of my situation again. During dinner, Andrew brings up the subject of the house again. Eleanor, have you thought about what we talked about? About selling the house? There's nothing to think about, Andrew. That house is my life. When the repairs are finished, I'll go back there. Mum, Rebecca intervenes with that voice she uses for difficult clients. It's reasonable. You had a serious accident there. Imagine if it happens again and we're not around. I'm 78, not 108. I lived alone for 12 years without problems. But it's different now, Andrew insists. You're more fragile. The word fragile hits me like an insult. I look at Matthew, who is watching the conversation with attentive, worried eyes. I think Grandma has the right to decide where she wants to live, he says, surprising everyone with his unexpected defense. An awkward silence settles over the table. Later, when Matthew comes to my room to say goodnight, he sits on the edge of the bed. Grandma, are you really okay here? I look at my grandson, this young man who seems to have inherited more of my spirit than his mother's practical personality. I'm surviving, dear. You know? He lowers his voice. I heard Mum and Dad talking last night. They were talking about your house and a nursing home. My blood runs cold. A nursing home? Is that what they're planning? Matthew, are you sure what you heard? He nods, his eyes full of concern. Dad said it would be easier if you cooperated with the house sale, and Mum mentioned a place called Sunset Gardens or something. I hold his hands. Thank you for telling me, my love. Don't worry about me. After he leaves, I lie in the dark, my mind racing. Why such insistence on selling the house? Rebecca had never shown interest in the property before. And why did the messages from the contractor in charge of the repairs stop coming 2 weeks ago? The next morning, when everyone leaves, I do something that shouldn't be necessary. I investigate. With difficulty, I hobble to Andrew's home office and begin to rummage through his desk. Among work papers and readings, I find something that makes me stop. A blueprint of my house, with notes on development potential and an estimated sale value that makes me swallow hard. As I examine the document, I hear footsteps. Quickly, I put everything away and pretend to just be walking through the hallway when Clara appears. Miss Eleanor, do you need help? I'm just walking around a bit, Clara. The doctor recommended it. She smiles, but I see the doubt in her eyes. Back in my room, the reality begins to take shape like a grim jigsaw puzzle. The insistence on selling, the silence about the repairs, the conversation about nursing homes. Andrew is a commercial real estate agent, and my house is in an area that is rapidly gaining value. That evening, when we are all gathered for dinner, I look at Rebecca and Andrew with new eyes. Who are these people? Would my own daughter be willing to drive me from my home for money? Grandma, Matthew whispers as he passes me. I found something strange in Dad's bathroom. A box of pills with your name written on it. Pills? What pills? I don't take anything other than what the doctor prescribed after the surgery. When everyone goes to sleep, I wait patiently, counting the minutes. At 12:00, I quietly leave the room. My hip protests with every step, but determination is stronger than the pain. I return to Andrew's office, this time with a small flashlight. In the bottom drawer of the desk, I find a pillbox. Digoxin. My heart races. Digoxin is a potent heart medication, which in incorrect doses can be fatal. And I don't have heart problems. In the next chapters, you will discover the true extent of the conspiracy against Eleanor. What began as the suspicions of a paranoid old woman will become a terrifying confirmation when she finds documents proving that Rebecca and Andrew not only want her house, they want her complete inheritance, and they are willing to do anything to get it. But Eleanor is no easy prey, and years of veterinary precision have given her skills her relatives would never imagine. The silent war is just beginning, and the worst is yet to come, when Eleanor discovers she is not the first inconvenient elderly woman in her son-in-law's history. I didn't sleep that night. How could I? The box of digoxin was etched in my mind like a death sentence. I spent hours replaying every interaction with Andrew in recent weeks, his sudden interest in my health, the questions about my medications, even the new habit of bringing me tea before bed. How do you sleep, Eleanor? Do you take anything to help? Do you feel dizzy or short of breath? You have a will, don't you? Is it updated? Small questions that seemed innocent at the time now fit into a sinister mosaic. When the sun came up, I was already sitting on the porch, watching the neighborhood wake up. Commuters going to their jobs, mothers taking their children to school, normal life taking its course while my world quietly fell apart. You're up early, Grandma. Matthew appeared on the porch, still in his pajamas, hair messy and eyes sleepy. I couldn't sleep much, I replied, trying to smile. He sat next to me in that comfortable silence we had developed. After a few minutes, I casually asked, Matthew, you said you saw pills with my name on them. Where exactly? In Mom and Dad's bathroom cabinet. I was looking for Band-Aids and saw a small box with your name written by hand. Was it digoxin? He frowned thoughtfully. I think so. A weird name like that. My heart sank, so it wasn't paranoia. Grandma, are you okay? You look scared. I looked at my grandson. So young, so innocent. How could I involve him in this? I'm fine, dear. I'm just worried about my house. He squeezed my hand. Everything will be all right. You'll be back there soon, I'm sure. But his youthful certainty didn't ease my growing fear. That morning, when everyone left, I did something desperate. I called the construction company in charge of my house's repairs. Ms. Eleanor, what a surprise, exclaimed Peter, the engineer in charge. I thought you had given up on the repairs. Given up? Why? Well, your son-in-law informed us almost a month ago that you had decided to sell the property as is. We even signed a termination agreement. My breath caught in my throat. I never authorized that. The silence on the other end of the line was deafening. Ms. Eleanor, he presented a power of attorney signed by you. Power of attorney? I never signed. And then I remembered. Weeks ago, Andrew brought me insurance documents to sign when I was under the influence of strong painkillers after a particularly painful physical therapy session. Peter, that house is everything to me. I don't want to sell it. His voice sounded concerned. Ms. Eleanor, this is very serious. If there was document forgery, I'll resolve it, Peter. Please don't mention this call to my son-in-law if he contacts you. I hung up with trembling hands. The conspiracy was real and far more extensive than I imagined. I needed to act. But how? I was alone, physically weakened, in a house that now seemed more like an elegant prison than a refuge. I thought about calling the police. But with what proof? A box of pills and a suspicion of a forged power of attorney wouldn't be enough. Besides, who would believe a 78-year-old woman against a respectable middle-aged couple? In the afternoon, I received an unexpected visit. Ethan showed up with an old veterinary book we had talked about on the phone. I brought it to distract you, he said, handing me the leather-bound volume. As soon as Clara left the room, I grabbed Ethan's hand. I need your help, I whispered, feeling tears burning my eyes. I think they're trying to kill me. His grey eyebrows shot up in alarm. Eleanor, what are you talking about? In urgent whispers, I told him everything. The insistence on selling the house, the forged power of attorney, the digoxin. Ethan listened without interrupting. His face hardened with each new revelation. Do you have a way to keep those pills as evidence? He asked, practical as always. No, I can't take them without raising suspicion. Then we'll get other evidence. He squeezed my hand. Eleanor, you saved my life when I had that heart attack at the clinic. I won't leave you alone in this. When he left, I felt stronger. I was no longer completely alone. That evening, during dinner, I observed Rebecca and Andrew with new eyes. How did I not notice the coldness behind their smiles before? So, Mum, Rebecca commented while serving the salad, I was thinking, how good would it be to use the value of your house sale to fulfill some of your dreams? Maybe an international trip. Or a cruise, Andrew suggested, smiling. It would be perfect for someone with mobility issues like you. A cruise, where accidents can easily happen, where people can fall into the sea without witnesses. I prefer to stay on dry land, I replied, carefully observing their reactions. In my own house, preferably. I saw the quick exchange of glances between them. But Mum, be reasonable, Rebecca insisted, her voice taking on that condescending tone she had been using with me lately. That house is too big for you alone. And after the accident… The accident, I interrupted, feeling a sudden clarity. Funny how we never had flooding problems before, did we? In 60 years. A tense silence fell over the table. Matthew looked from me to his parents, confused. What are you implying, Eleanor? Andrew asked, his voice suddenly cold. Nothing, dear son-in-law. Just an observation from a confused old woman. That night, locked in my room, I called Ethan again. I need you to verify something for me. The flood at my house. I want to know if it was really an accident. You think it was deliberate? I don't know, but it seems too convenient. I paused, thinking. And one more thing. I want you to find out if Andrew or Rebecca have debts. Big debts. How will I do that? Do you still treat that private investigator, the one who had the German shepherd, with displeasure? Yes, Robert. You really think… I think I need to know who I'm dealing with, I replied, feeling a determination I hadn't felt in years. And fast. In the following days, I adopted a strategy. I started to seem more fragile, more confused. I pretended not to remember recent conversations. I repeatedly asked about the same things. I accidentally dropped objects. I saw the relief in Rebecca and Andrew's eyes. Senility would facilitate their plans. During that time, I also started politely refusing any drink or food that didn't come directly from Clara's hands, or that I didn't see being prepared. Andrew, thanks for the tea, but Clara already brought me one. Rebecca, dear, I don't have an appetite for that vitamin supplement right now. I saw the frustration growing in them, especially in Andrew. A week later, Ethan returned with news that confirmed my worst suspicions. Andrew is up to his neck in gambling debts, he told me quietly during another social visit. Hundreds of thousands of dollars. And there's more. This isn't the first time he's had an elderly mother-in-law living with them. A chill ran down my spine. What do you mean? His first marriage, before Rebecca, the ex-wife's mother also moved into their house after an accident at her own residence. She died 6 months later. Heart attack, according to the death certificate. My blood ran cold. And her house? Sold immediately after her death. The money went to the daughter, naturally. And where is this ex-wife now? Divorced. She lives overseas. The room seemed to spin around me. It wasn't paranoia. It was a pattern. As for the flood at your house, Ethan continued, Robert found something interesting. A neighbor saw a plumber at your house 2 days before the accident, when you were at physical therapy. I didn't call a plumber. Exactly. I closed my eyes, trying to control the panic. What do I do now, Ethan? If I confront them, they'll deny everything, and they clearly have no scruples. You have to get out of this house, Eleanor. Come to mine. I shook my head. I can't just leave. They would bring me back, claiming concern for my mental health. I need concrete proof first. That night, lying in bed, I drew up a plan. I wouldn't be the defenseless victim they expected. I was a veterinarian for nearly 5 decades. I knew more about toxicology, anatomy, and physiology than they could imagine. The next morning, when everyone left, I asked Clara to take me to the mall. I need to buy some personal things, I explained with an innocent smile. At the mall, while Clara waited patiently, I made some strategic purchases. A small digital recorder, empty pill bottles, and a cheap prepaid cell phone. Back home, I carefully hid everything under the loose lining of my old suitcase. Now I just needed the right opportunity. It came 3 days later. Andrew mentioned during dinner that he and Rebecca would be going out for a meeting with the organizing committee for her birthday party. "Matthew, could you stay with your grandmother?" Rebecca asked. "Actually," I interrupted, "Ethan invited me to dinner at his house. It would be good for me to get out a bit, if you don't mind." I saw the hesitation in Andrew's eyes. "Are you sure you feel up to going out? The weather is humid. It might worsen your aches." "I'll be fine. Ethan is coming to pick me up and bring me back." In that case, Rebecca seemed relieved not to have to rearrange her plans. When they left that night, I didn't go to Ethan's house. Instead, he helped me execute the first part of my plan, installing small hidden cameras in the main rooms of the house, including the kitchen and Andrew's office. "Is this legal?" I asked as he discreetly placed one of the cameras. "Technically, no," he admitted, "but murder isn't either." As we worked, Matthew unexpectedly appeared at the office door. "What are you doing?" he asked, startling us. Ethan and I exchanged alarmed glances. Could we trust a teenager with something so serious? "Matthew," I began slowly, "I need you to be very mature right now. Can I trust you? I think I'm in danger in this house." "Because of the pills?" he asked, surprising me with his perceptiveness. "Yes, among other things." He looked at the small cameras and then at us, an adult determination seizing his young face. "How can I help?" Including Matthew in our plan was simultaneously the hardest and most correct decision I made. A teenager shouldn't have to discover that his parents might be plotting to kill his grandmother, but he already suspected, and his help would be invaluable. "Your part is simple but crucial," I explained, as Ethan finished installing the cameras. "Watch and listen. Any conversation between your parents about me, my health, my house, or money, write everything down, but above all, act normal. We don't want them to suspect." His eyes were serious, almost adult. "And if I hear something really bad?" I squeezed his hand. "Then you call me on this number." I handed him the paper with the prepaid cell phone number. Immediately. When Rebecca and Andrew returned that night, they found me quietly watching television in the living room, as if I had just returned from a pleasant dinner with an old friend. "How was your evening?" I asked with an innocent smile. "Productive," Andrew replied, hanging up his coat. "And yours?" "Wonderful. Ethan always makes me remember the good times." In the following days, I maintained my normal routine, although internally I was in a constant state of alert. Every glass of water, every meal was a potential vehicle for the digoxin. I developed the habit of accidentally spilling drinks Andrew offered me, or forgetting to take the supplements he insisted I needed. Meanwhile, Matthew proved to be an exceptional ally. His room was near Andrew's office, and he could hear phone conversations through the thin wall. "Dad talked about speeding up the process," he told me during one of our private moments in the garden. "He told someone on the phone that time is running out and he needs to resolve this before the party." Rebecca's 50th birthday party was fast approaching, only 2 weeks away. The deadline was becoming clearer. One night, after everyone went to sleep, I took out the small tablet Ethan had given me to access the hidden camera footage. I spent hours reviewing the day's recordings until I found something disturbing. Andrew in the office, talking softly on the phone. "No, I can't wait any longer. The old woman is getting suspicious. Yes, we have the power of attorney, but that's not enough. We need the house sold and the life insurance money before the creditors come after me. No, Rebecca doesn't know everything, just that we want to convince her mother to sell the house." Life insurance? I didn't have any life insurance in their name. Or did I? With trembling hands, I kept watching the recordings. Hours later, in another recording, I saw Andrew rummaging through a drawer in his desk. He pulled out an envelope and scattered documents on the table. I adjusted the camera zoom and froze. It was a life insurance policy in my name, with Rebecca as the beneficiary, worth $1 million. The policy date was only 3 months ago, after my accident. How did he get it? And then I remembered. More insurance papers to sign when I was still under the influence of strong painkillers. The next morning, I called Ethan as soon as I was alone. "We need to act now," I said without preamble. "He has a fraudulent life insurance policy in my name." "My goodness, Eleanor, this is much worse than we imagined. I'm going to confront Rebecca today, alone." "No." The worry in Ethan's voice was palpable. "It's too risky. What if she's involved up to her neck?" "I know my daughter," I replied, although an inner voice questioned if that was really true. "She might have been manipulated by Andrew. I need to give her a chance." Ethan sighed heavily. "At least let me be close. I'll be in the car, across from the house. If you don't call me in an hour, I'll come in." Deal. That afternoon, when Matthew was at school and Andrew at work, I asked Clara to leave us alone. I needed to talk privately with my daughter. Rebecca seemed surprised by the request, but agreed to dedicate an hour of her busy day to me. We sat on the porch, with 2 untouched cups of tea between us. The autumn sun cast a golden light over the manicured garden, a beauty that contrasted with the darkness of our imminent conversation. "Rebecca," I began, keeping my voice steady, "what do you know about a life insurance policy in my name?" Her cup stopped halfway to her mouth. "Life insurance? I don't know what you're talking about, Mum." I studied her face. The confusion seemed genuine, but Rebecca was always good at hiding her emotions. "And what about the power of attorney Andrew used to stop the repairs to my house? You don't know anything about that either?" She put the cup down, red patches appearing on her cheeks. "What exactly are you accusing me of?" "I'm not accusing, I'm asking." I kept my voice calm, watching every reaction. "Your husband forged a power of attorney in my name, took out fraudulent life insurance, and has a box of digoxin with my name written on it. What do you think I'm thinking?" Rebecca paled. "That's absurd. You're becoming paranoid, Mum. The accident affected more than just your hip, apparently." "I have proof, Rebecca." I placed printed photos from the hidden cameras on the table. Andrew with the insurance documents, the forged power of attorney, the box of digoxin. What I intend to do with this proof depends on your answer now." She looked at the photos. Her eyes widened gradually. When she looked up, I saw something I hadn't expected. Not guilt, but genuine horror. "Mum," her voice broke. "I didn't know anything about this. I swear on my life, on Matthew. Andrew said you had agreed to sell the house, that you were tired of living alone. And you believed him, after knowing me for 50 years? Tears began to roll down Rebecca's face. "He said you were in denial about your condition, that it was better for everyone." "For everyone, or for him?" "Did you know about his gambling debts?" She choked. "What debts?" "Hundreds of thousands of dollars, Rebecca. Enough to jeopardize this house, your lifestyle, and Matthew's future." My daughter covered her face with her hands, her shoulders shaking with silent sobs. For a moment, I felt sorry for her, the child I once cradled in my arms, now a woman shattered by the betrayal of the man she chose. "What do we do now?" she finally asked, lifting a face stained with tears and smudged makeup. "First, you're going to tell me the whole truth, how much you knew, how much you suspected." She took a deep breath, trying to compose herself. I knew we had financial problems. Andrew said they were investments that went wrong. He suggested that it would be better for you to sell the house and use the money for more comforts. He talked about a community for the elderly, not a nursing home. She paused, realizing the lie in her own words. God, how stupid I was. And about the accident at my house, the flood. She vehemently shook her head. No, Mum. Never. I would never allow something like that. I wanted to believe her. Desperately. But years of small disappointments and estrangement between us made it difficult. There's one more thing you need to know, I said, watching her intently. This isn't the first time Andrew has done this. I told her about Andrew's first mother-in-law, the terrifyingly similar pattern, the death by heart attack. I watched the blood drain from her face as the full truth of the situation was revealed. What are we going to do? She repeated, now with an urgency tinged with fear. That depends on you, Rebecca. I can go to the police right now with this evidence, but that would destroy not only Andrew, but also you and Matthew. Or, she asked, clinging to the possibility of an alternative. Or you help me corner your husband, make him confess everything. We record it, and then you decide what to do with that information. Rebecca looked at me for a long moment, the internal struggle clearly visible in her eyes. Finally, she nodded. I'll help you. In the following hours, we drew up a plan. Rebecca would pretend to be on Andrew's side, pressuring me even more about selling the house. Meanwhile, I would start to appear increasingly ill, the effects of the digoxin I was supposedly ingesting. Do you really think he tried to poison you? Rebecca asked, her voice trembling. The pills are there, Rebecca. Why else would he have a potentially lethal heart medication with my name written on it? She had no answer for that. Ethan, who was anxiously waiting in his car, was relieved to know I was okay, but worried about the plan. It's risky, Eleanor. What if he realizes? Then you and Robert will be ready to intervene. In the following days, I played my part perfectly. I complained of dizziness, weakness, blurred vision, all symptoms of digoxin poisoning. I saw the gleam of satisfaction in Andrew's eyes, although he maintained a facade of concern. Perhaps we should take you to the doctor, he suggested during dinner, 3 days later. It's not necessary, I replied, feigning weakness. It's probably just tiredness. Still, Mum, Rebecca intervened, following our script. Better to get checked out. Andrew shook his head. No, Rebecca. If Eleanor says she's fine, let's respect her. He gave me a smile that didn't reach his eyes. But how about a special tea I prepared? It helps you relax. Thank you, I replied, accepting the cup he offered me. Later, when everyone was asleep, I poured the contents of the cup into one of the jars I had bought. Ethan would take it for analysis the next morning. The results came in 24 hours. The tea contained a significant dose of digoxin, not enough to kill immediately, but to cause a natural heart attack after a few weeks of accumulated use. Rebecca's birthday party was scheduled for the following weekend. According to the conversations Andrew had on the phone, that would be the final deadline. The plan was to take me for a medical checkup the day after the party, probably to formalize my death after I had accidentally taken an overdose of digoxin during the celebration. The eve of the party, Rebecca, Matthew, and I put the final phase of the plan into action. Ethan and Robert, the investigator, would hide in the house during the party, ready to intervene if necessary. All the cameras were checked and the recording equipment installed. Are you sure you want to do this, Mum? Rebecca asked, fear evident in her voice. In recent days, our relationship had transformed. The layers of estrangement had slowly dissolved due to the shared crisis. We have no choice, I replied. We need a confession. Matthew, who had become surprisingly mature throughout the situation, hugged me tightly. Be careful, Grandma. The morning of the party, I played my part perfectly. I seemed weaker than ever, barely able to walk down the stairs without help. Andrew was radiant, though he tried to hide it. Maybe you should rest today, he suggested with false concern. The party can be very tiring for you. I wouldn't miss my daughter's 50th for anything, I replied, smiling frailly. Even if it's the last party I attend. Something flashed in his eyes. Anticipation, before he could control it. The house filled with guests in the evening. Rebecca's friends, colleagues, distant relatives. I sat in a quiet corner, watching the movement, waiting for the right moment. It came when most of the guests had already left, with only a few close friends chatting in the living room. Andrew approached with a glass. A special toast to my favourite mother-in-law, he said, loud enough for the others to hear, for being with us on this important day. I accepted the glass, noticing the liquid was slightly cloudier than normal champagne. Thank you, Andrew. You've been so attentive lately. I raised the glass to my lips, pretending to drink while he watched intently. Moments later, I started acting. A sudden dizziness, difficulty breathing, chest pain. Eleanor? Andrew approached, concern on his face, but relief in his eyes. Are you okay? I don't feel well, I stammered, dropping the glass. My heart? The few remaining guests turned in alarm. Rebecca ran to my side, following our script. Mum, what's wrong? Someone call an ambulance. No, Andrew quickly interrupted. I'll take her to the hospital. It will be faster than waiting for an ambulance. Exactly as we had predicted. I'm coming with you, Rebecca said, as Andrew helped me up. No need, dear. Stay with the guests. I'll take care of your mother. His voice was firm, leaving no room for argument. As he led me to the garage, away from the eyes of the guests, Rebecca discreetly followed us, keeping her distance with the recorder in her pocket. In the garage, instead of immediately putting me in the car, Andrew sat me in a chair. Let's wait a bit, he said, checking that we were alone. Give the medicine time to take effect. Medicine? I weakly asked, playing confused. What medicine? A cold smile spread across his face. The medicine that is going to solve all our problems, Eleanor. Unfortunately, your frail heart won't be able to handle it. You put something in my drink? Digoxin. Are you familiar with it? It causes symptoms almost identical to a natural heart attack, especially in a lady your age with a history of falls and fragility. He looked at his watch. Soon we'll be on our way to the hospital, but I'm afraid we'll arrive too late. My heart raced, despite knowing this was only an act. The cruelty in his voice was real. Why? I asked with a trembling voice. Rebecca is your daughter. It's about money, Eleanor. It always has been. Your house, your life insurance. We need it. The debts are suffocating us. Gambling debts. His eyes narrowed. How did you... I know more than you imagine, Andrew, I replied, my voice gaining strength. About the debts, the forged power of attorney, about your first mother-in-law. He visibly paled. What are you talking about? The question isn't how I found out, Andrew. It's who else knows. It was at that moment that Rebecca emerged from the shadows, phone in hand, recording everything. I know, for example, she said, her voice trembling with rage and pain. Andrew turned around, shock evident on his face. Rebecca, what are you doing here? Recording you confessing that you tried to kill my mother, apparently, and that you probably killed your first mother-in-law too. You don't understand, he began, desperation growing in his voice. We're ruined, Rebecca. The debts. Gambling debts you hid from me, she interrupted him, while planning to murder my mother for money. At that instant, the garage door opened. Ethan, Robert, and 2 police officers walked in. Andrew Morales, one of the officers said, you are under arrest on charges of attempted murder, fraud, and document forgery. As the officers handcuffed him, Andrew looked at me with pure hatred. You damned old woman, you ruined everything. No, Andrew, I calmly replied, standing up without any sign of the weakness I had feigned. You ruined yourself. Next time, remember, never underestimate a veterinarian who spent her life dealing with predators. The following months were a whirlwind. Statements to the police, preliminary hearings, journalists trying to get exclusives on the poisoner son-in-law, as the press nicknamed him. The investigation into the death of Andrew's first mother-in-law was reopened, and evidence of digoxin poisoning was found in the preserved tissue samples. Andrew eventually accepted a plea bargain with the prosecution, confessing to both crimes in exchange for a reduced sentence. Even so, he would spend at least 20 years in prison. We discovered that his debts were even greater than we imagined, more than $1 million to loan sharks and illegal casinos. Rebecca's house, the cars, almost everything would have to be sold to cover part of that amount. In the midst of this chaos, something unexpected happened. Rebecca and I grew close again. Decades of emotional distance began to dissolve in the nights we spent talking, crying together, rebuilding bridges we thought were permanently burned. I never realized how much I distanced myself from you, she admitted one night, sitting on the porch of my rebuilt house, where I had finally returned. I was so busy trying to prove I was different, independent, and I was so determined not to interfere that I ended up seeming absent, I completed. I think we both made mistakes. Matthew blossomed in this new family environment. Without Andrew's controlling influence, he felt free to show his compassionate and curious nature. He spent entire afternoons with me, learning about veterinary medicine, fascinated by stories of animals I saved throughout my career. I think I want to be a doctor, he confided to me one day. Or maybe a veterinarian like you. You'd be excellent at either of those professions, I replied, feeling a wave of pride. Rebecca and Matthew ended up moving to a small apartment near my house in Boston. The sale of the mansion and almost all the luxury goods was painful, but also liberating for her. I never realized how much of that lifestyle was just to impress others, she reflected as we packed the last boxes. It's strange, but I feel lighter now, even with everything we lost. 6 months after Andrew's arrest, on a sunny spring afternoon, the 3 of us were sitting in my newly planted garden. Rebecca had found a job at a smaller advertising agency, but with a more humane work environment. Matthew was excelling in school, especially in biology. You know what's funny, Mum? Rebecca said, looking at the clear sky. Andrew always insisted you should sell this house because it was too big for one person. Now I understand why you fought so hard to keep it. I looked around, at the walls that witnessed decades of my life with Robert, at the garden where Rebecca took her first steps, at the tree where we hung a swing when Matthew was small. It's not just a house, I replied. It's a story, our story. That night, after they left, I sat on the porch watching the stars, as I used to do with Robert. I thought about how close I came to losing everything, not just my life, but the possibilities of reconciliation, of new beginnings, of more chapters in our family story. Ethan showed up for our now traditional Friday night tea. Since the incident, he had become a constant presence in my life, and to my surprise, also in Rebecca's. How's the most stubborn patient I've ever had? He joked, sitting next to me. Better than ever, I replied. and realized it was true. The physical therapy sessions finally paid off, and now I walked with only a light cane. The hip pain had decreased considerably. "You know," I commented while pouring the tea, "I never imagined that at 78 I would be dismantling a murder conspiracy." Ethan laughed. "You were always underestimated, Eleanor, by everyone but me." His gaze lingered on mine a little longer than necessary, and I felt a familiar warmth I hadn't experienced in years. A month later, I received an unexpected call. It was Cindy, Andrew's ex-wife, calling from London. "Dr. Eleanor, I hope I'm not bothering you. I heard about what happened from a journalist friend." Her voice was hesitant, laden with contained emotion. "I wanted to thank you personally. For years, I lived with the suspicion that Andrew had something to do with my mother's death. But everyone called me paranoid, even my own therapist. We talked for hours. She told me how she blamed herself, how her mother's death left her emotionally shattered and vulnerable to manipulation, how Andrew isolated her from friends and family who asked inconvenient questions. "You did what I couldn't," she finally said, her voice choked. "You brought my mother justice." When I hung up, I felt a mix of sadness and gratitude. Sadness for the pain that woman carried for years, gratitude for having managed to prevent the same cycle from repeating. Winter came, bringing with it the first Christmas without Andrew. Rebecca had decided to have dinner at my house, like the old times, she said. Matthew invited Ethan, who immediately accepted. On Christmas Eve, as we prepared dinner together, Rebecca surprised me with a question. "You and Ethan, there's something there, isn't there?" I felt my cheeks flush, a reaction I thought impossible at 79. "We're just old friends," I replied, concentrating on the mashed potatoes I was preparing. "Mum," she smiled, "I'm 50, not 15. I recognize when there's more than friendship." The truth is that Ethan and I had grown very close in recent months. Dinners, walks in the park, afternoons watching old movies we both loved. He would hold my hand crossing the street. I would fix his tie when it was crooked. Small gestures that spoke of a growing intimacy, a comfort we only find when we no longer need to prove anything to anyone. "Perhaps there is something," I finally admitted. "But at this stage of life is when we most need company," Rebecca completed, surprising me with her wisdom. "After everything that's happened, I learned that life is too precious to postpone happiness." Christmas dinner was the happiest in many years. Matthew played the violin, a skill he was secretly developing. Rebecca had prepared everyone's favorite desserts. Ethan brought a special wine he had been saving for years, for a truly important occasion. When the night progressed and Matthew had already gone to sleep, the three adults sat in front of the fireplace. "I have an announcement," Rebecca said, looking nervous and excited at the same time. "I've been invited to lead an awareness campaign on domestic violence and financial abuse, based on our experience." "That's wonderful," I replied, squeezing her hand. "No one better than you for that job." "There's more," she continued. "The campaign will include talks for the elderly on how to recognize signs of abuse and manipulation. I'd like you to participate, Mum. Your perspective would be invaluable." Ethan raised his glass. "A toast to Eleanor, who at 79 is about to start a new career as a speaker." We all laughed, and at that moment, I felt a serenity of happiness envelop me. The life I imagined for my old age, quiet, peaceful, surrounded by books and memories, had transformed into something completely different. More agitated, certainly, but also richer, more meaningful. The following spring, Ethan surprised me with an unexpected request during one of our walks in the park. "Eleanor, I'm too old for games. Will you marry me?" I stopped, completely stunned. "Marry? Ethan, we're almost 80. Exactly why, he replied, holding my hands. We don't have time to waste. We spent 50 years as colleagues, then friends. I think we deserve a few years being something more. People will think we're ridiculous, a wedding at our age. Since when do you care what others think? I looked at him, at the kind eyes that always saw the best in me, at the strong hands that helped me rebuild my life when everything seemed lost. Yes, I simply replied. Yes, I'll marry you. It was a small ceremony, only family and close friends. Matthew was the best man, proud in his first suit. Rebecca, my maid of honor, cried more than I did. We decided that each would keep their own house. We're too old to learn to share sock drawers, Ethan joked, but we spent most of the time together, alternating between the two residences. On my 80th birthday, I looked around the table full of loved ones. Rebecca, stronger and more focused than ever. Matthew, growing up to be a sensitive and intelligent young man. Ethan, my companion and late-life love. Former colleagues from the veterinary clinic, neighbours who became friends. All gathered to celebrate not only my age, but my survival, my resilience. A toast, Rebecca proposed, raising her glass. To my mother, who taught me that it's never too late to start over, to fight, to love. As the glasses clinked, I thought about how unpredictable life is. At 78, I thought my path was defined, that the great events and transformations were already behind me. I was completely wrong. The night before, I had received an email from a publisher interested in publishing my story. Digoxin, Memoirs of an Inconvenient Grandmother, a narrative of the events that almost cost me my life, and how, ironically, they gave me a new reason to live. What are you thinking about? Ethan quietly asked, noticing my thoughtful silence. How endings can just be new beginnings in disguise, I replied, squeezing his hand. And how sometimes we need to lose almost everything to discover what truly matters. I looked again at my gathered family, not perfect, not without scars, but real and present. The house I fought so hard to keep had transformed into a real home again, full of voices, laughter, and yes, occasional tears. Exactly as it should be. The retired veterinarian who once dreamed of a quiet old age discovered in the end that life at 80 can be more vibrant, more meaningful, and more surprising than she ever imagined. And for that, I am deeply grateful. To the future, I toasted, raising my glass. Whatever it may be. Beside me, Ethan smiled. In front of me, Rebecca and Matthew raised their glasses in response. And in that perfect moment, I knew that no matter what happened, I would no longer face anything alone. Some say old age is a time of losses and goodbyes. For me, it became a time of discoveries and reunions, a time not of conclusion, but of transformation. And after all, isn't that what life is about? Transforming ourselves, adapting, finding beauty and purpose, even in the most improbable circumstances. At 80, I don't have all the answers, but I have something equally valuable. The certainty that there are still questions to ask, paths to explore, stories to live, and that, more than anything else, is the true treasure of my old age. This story is a reminder for all of us. Never underestimate the wisdom and strength of an older person. They have decades of experience, and if you underestimate them, they might surprise you. What did you think of the story? Do you think her revenge was the fairest? If you had to choose, what would you do? Leave your opinion in the comments, subscribe to the channel for more stories like this, and hit the notification bell so you don't miss the next videos. Sending love, and until next time.